What is up everyone, and welcome back to the channel. And today we're going to be talking about a game that if you'd asked me 6 months ago whether it be one of my early Game of the Year contenders, I'd have probably laughed at you. And that game, as you can see by the background footage here, is 007 First Light. Now when it was first announced, there was definitely some excitement because, let's be honest, it's James Bond, one of the most iconic characters in entertainment history. There was a lot of uncertainty as well. Bond hasn't exactly dominated the gaming landscape in recent years. Most people instantly think of GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64 and a couple of the PS2 games, Nightfire, Agent Under Fire. And apart from that, many others struggle to name a genuinely great Bond game. So when IO Interactive, the studio behind the Hitman series, announced they were taking on the role of the Bond license, people were interested but cautious. Could they really make a Bond game? Could they really create something special that felt different from Hitman, while still keeping what made their previous games special? Most importantly, could they make James Bond relevant in gaming again? Now, having spent some time in 007 First Light, I think the answer is a resounding yes. Not only have they made the Bond game great, they've created one of the freshest experiences I've played this year. And in all honesty, in the gaming industry, packed in with remakes, remasters, sequels and safe bets, that alone deserves recognition. Looking back at it, IO Interactive were probably the perfect developers to tackle James Bond. It almost feels obvious. Think about what made the Hitman games so successful. They weren't just about shooting people, they were about planning, observation, improvisation, using your environment, finding creative solutions to the same problem. And that philosophy, it's here in the Bond game. Because James Bond has never been a guy who just walks into a room, shoots everybody and walks out. He's intelligent, he's resourceful, he's adaptable, uses whatever tools are available to complete the mission. That's exactly what IO have captured with this game. You can approach objectives in multiple ways. You can play stealthy, you can go loud, you can manipulate situations, you can exploit opportunities, you can use gadgets, you can rely on combat. There isn't just one route to complete every single mission, and that's where this game starts to feel special. The freedom it gives the player is something I think a lot of modern action games are missing. Too many games feel like they're holding your hand at every step of the way. 007 First Light trusts the player, gives you the tools and says, go figure it out. And it's refreshing. This mission here that we're doing now in a nightclub, it was sprung upon us. You're getting told to go to the gents room and find a letter X on one of the stools. Then you come out and the guy that you were chatting up his missus at the bar is coming in, he's throwing everybody out, and you're thinking, it's going to go down. And that's what this makes this game so special.
Chat's up my girlfriend.
A man of principles.
They understand Bond's humour. One thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the humour. Bond has always had a sense of humour, even in the darker films. That iconic moment when Daniel Craig is sat in the chair getting his nut slapped by a rope ball and he starts laughing at him. The Roger Moore scenes, the Sean Connery scenes, keeping up the British end, all of that. It's always a clever line, it's a sarcastic comment, a moment of charm, a ridiculous situation played completely straight. And thankfully, First Light understands this. The writing doesn't take itself too seriously. There are plenty of moments that make me smile. The dialogue feels authentic. Moments it feels like you are Bond. He feels charismatic. It sounds simple, but it's one of the hardest things to get right. Because if Bond isn't charismatic, the entire experience falls apart. Thankfully, IO understands that part of the character. And I'm going to leave you with another funny quote he says right here as well now.
Not exactly the 5-star treatment.
The biggest compliment I can give this game is it's simple. It genuinely makes you feel like James Bond. Not an action hero, not a super soldier, not a secret agent with Bond's face, but James Bond. The missions have classic Bond feel. You're gathering intelligence, chatting up the ladies, infiltrating locations, manipulating enemies, using your charm, your gadgets, thinking your way through situations rather than simply shooting your way through them. The game understands Bond's greatest weapon isn't his gun, it's his brain, it's his wit, it's his charm, the charisma, the being British about it. Everything comes across through the entire experience. Every time I found a new solution to an objective or discovered an alternative route, it felt like something Bond would have done himself. The level of immersion is difficult to achieve, but IO Interactive absolutely nailed it. Look at it, and talking about the gadgets, because let's be honest, Bond without his gadgets isn't really Bond. And thankfully they're back. You get to meet Q early onto the game. You get a watch that can control electrics. You can poison dart people. Then as you go on, you unlock loads of more different gadgets. You get a camera that when you take a picture, it sends like a shockwave out. You know, there's loads of stuff going on, and the gadgets allow you to change how you want to play. Different approaches require different equipment. Experimenting with them becomes genuinely fun. You start looking at situations differently. Instead of asking, how do I get through this? You're asking, what gadget would Bond use here? That shift in the mindset is exactly what developers were aiming for. They're part of the fantasy, and it makes every mission feel unique. And for me, I'm going to be going back and playing the missions again and seeing if I could have done it a different way. You know, if you get caught out in the open, you can use your charm to, you know, almost pretend that you should be there, or, you know, hold your hands up and say, oh, I apologise, I shouldn't have been here, and walk away from it and attempt a different situation. And that is why IO have nailed that side of things. It makes you feel like you are James Bond, with everything connecting together. The gadgets, the charm, the charisma. It's absolutely nailed that sweet spot. One of the biggest surprises for me was the combat. I expected decent gunplay. I expected the stealth. That's what Hitman's known for. What I didn't expect is some absolute brutal takedowns that this game delivers. There were moments where I genuinely sat back and thought, well, that escalated quickly. Smashing someone's head off a urinal was definitely not on my bingo card for this Bond game, but somehow it worked. Here you're seeing in the background one of the early fights that you get into in a castle underground. You know, you can smash their head through glass off wine bottles, you know, smash them into suits of armour like that. I mean, look how brutal that feels, and every punch feels weighty, it connects. You know, it somehow works. It feels impactful. Everything lands with weight. Every takedown feels satisfying. It's sleek, stylish, but still feels Bond-like. And it's an incredible, difficult balance to strike. Bond isn't Batman. He's not supposed to spend 10 minutes beating up 20 enemies. But when things get physical, it needs to look convincing. And that game delivers on this front. You know, being able to block and counter and parry people and throw them, knee them, you know, everything just works really, really well. And again, it genuinely, hand on heart, surprised me how satisfying, you know, fist-to-fist combat was in this game. Obviously, I knew that the gunplay would be decent because of their background. I knew the stealth gameplay would be decent, but it's another level, and I really, really enjoy getting into fights in the game and seeing different ways I can take people down. You know, the knee in there, throwing them off the armor, and I'm up against two people here, and I don't really feel overwhelmed because I can focus on trying to take down one person and then crack them and smash them and then move on to the next person. Absolutely groundbreaking. I love it. Hand on heart, great gameplay here for this stuff. Now, the game isn't perfect, and for me there's one area where First Light really does feel short, and it's the driving. It's not terrible, it's not game breaking, but compared to everything else they've done, it feels noticeably weaker. The handling feels a little awkward. Vehicles don't always have the weight and responsiveness you want, and you see here I just crash it, and the hitbox just doesn't seem right on the cars. And coming from playing Forza Horizon 6, which I know is fully just a racing game, and that's all they focus on, to this, it threw me off a little bit. You know, they don't hit the same standard as that stealth and combat that we've seen in this James Bond game. I am willing to give IO Interactive some slack on this though. This is a studio that spent years making Hitman. Driving has never been a major focus of their games. Creating a Bond game means suddenly you have to tackle car chases, vehicle handling, high-speed action sequences. A completely different challenge. It's a different experience. It's a whole new world for them. So while the driving isn't amazing, it's passable. More importantly for me, it never really drags the experience down. It becomes part of the franchise. It's also something easier for them to improve on if they do ever decide to do a sequel for this. But as you can see here in the background, it didn't really feel like a proper car chase to me, and it just felt really, really weak. But it's not enough to put me off playing any more of this game, and I don't think it should be enough to put anybody else off playing this game. When stealth and diplomacy goes out the window, like it usually does for me, then the gunplay has to take centre stage. And thankfully, it's excellent. The different weapon varieties have different punches. The shotgun I saw there that you saw me using hits at close range. It feels brutal. The pistol, you can still pull off quite nice shots with the pistol. Pick up an AR assault rifle later on, and it allows me to, take those long range headshots. One feature I have particularly enjoyed is the focus mechanic. Slowing down and lining up the perfect shot, it never gets old. It makes every firefight feel cinematic, like something straight out of a Bond movie. None of those moments where Bond just turns around and effortlessly takes out multiple enemies before adjusting his suit like nothing happened. That's the feeling this mechanic captures. It's fun, it's stylish, and most importantly, it never feels overpowered. You still need skill, you still need timing, and you still need awareness. The mechanic simply enhances the fantasy rather than breaking it. My overall thoughts is, I think what most excites me about this game isn't just the game itself, it's what it represents. This is a studio taking a risk, a publisher taking a risk, a legendary IP being handed to a team that genuinely understood it. We need more of this. Too often the industry plays it safe, the same franchises, the same formulas, the same annual releases, the same remakes, same remasters, same games over and over and over again. Meanwhile, there are countless incredible IPs just sitting on the shelf collecting dust. Imagine more developers being trusted with dormant franchises, fresh ideas, new perspectives, different approaches. That's exactly what's happened here, and the result could be one of the most refreshing games I've played in a long time. Could it really be Game of the Year? No, I know it's early and there's still plenty of major releases to come. GTA, one of them, going to be massive. But if you ask me today for my early Game of the Year contenders, 007 First Light will be absolutely on this list. Not because it's perfect, not because it revolutionises gaming, because it feels different, it feels confident, it feels fresh. It understands the source material and it makes it fun. It sounds obvious, but modern gaming sometimes it feels like developers forget that fun should come first part. 007 First Light never forgets that. Every mission, every gadget, every fight. You see me here in the background, I'm tilting a plane by using my watch, and you can see people and cars and stuff flying all over the place. It's a creative solution. It's a ridiculous Bond moment. It's designed to entertain, and that's exactly what it does. So, could 007 be one of the biggest gaming surprises? For me, absolutely. IO Interactive have taken one of the most iconic characters in entertainment history and delivered a game that genuinely feels worthy of the Bond name. The gadgets are fantastic, the combat is brutal, gunplay is excellent, the humour feels authentic, and while the driving isn't perfect, it's a small complaint in what is otherwise an incredibly enjoyable experience. In a market dominated by sequels, remakes, familiar formulas, 007 First Light feels like a breath of fresh air. And that's why, right now, it's one of my early contenders for Game of the Year. But let me know in the comment section down below, have you played this game? Do you think it could be a Game of the Year contender? And what other dormant franchises would you like to see make a comeback? If you've enjoyed today's video, make sure you leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.